Hey guys, welcome to another episode of VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. All right, today we're here with the Type R motor. This is the K20C1 that comes in the Civic Type R. It's a really huge motor. I'm actually installing it or testing my new kit in the 92.5 Civic, which would also work in the DC to Integra as well as the EK. Let me just kind of go over a few things real quick. This motor's huge. We had to put a really big hole in the frame rail here. This obviously needs to be filled in afterwards so you don't have a bunch of water and junk getting up in there and causing rust and stuff like that. But that needed to be done in order to get the engine in there. I also had to trim here on the subframe. This is for the differential. And on top of that, on the differential, I changed out some of the nuts for socket head cap screws. Actually not, button head cap screws. They're a little bit lower profile. All right, so now let's look at the mounts real quick. First of all, we have the one that goes on the frame rail. I've decided to kind of triangulate it. It's really, really tall. This motor mount sits up really high. This is the mount that connects to that. So this mount will go right in there and connect to the timing chain side of the car. It'll go on the frame rail. So you will have to cut off the transmission mount on the frame. This is the transition side mount. This is our normal K-series flip mount that goes in the stock bracket there on the frame rail. This reaches down to the transmission. Kind of a weird looking bracket, but again, the mounts are tall and long on this particular car. So that's the transmission mount. On the back, we have a bracket that actually attaches to the underside of the block. That goes on where the timing belt meets the transmission. Bolts on with two large 14 millimeters. This particular mount bolts onto the subframe. Very similar to what we use for our K-series lean kit. And then we have this torque mount that basically extends between the two of them in order to control torque. Now normally we don't use a solid one. I just happen to use this one because it's scratched up and it's something I use kind of just to try things in generally to see where it's going to sit. But anyway, we are now going to test fit these in the car and take a look at how the engine fits in there. This engine is actually really tight in here, so we've got to kind of sit it a little bit sideways to get it in. I think, yeah, keep going. Hold on. Okay.
So the secret to that bolt's to have a flex head ratchet?
Actually, the secret to this is put this on before you put it in the car and then attach the thing. We just happen to have it. I took it out conveniently as one piece. I would suggest putting it in as two pieces. The left and right mounts in. Now we're going to put the rear mount in. Let's go up. Put that right. Well, this is the way the rear mount works on this. There's the mount that bolts onto the subframe. It's braced pretty heavily. Then we have the mount that bolts onto the oil pan at the rear of the block. On the Accords, the mount's actually over here. So I think that people who are getting the Accord engine are going to want to switch to this particular oil pan off the Type R. Although I may come up with a different mount that brings the bracket over on this other side here. We'll just have to see when those motors start arriving. And the other thing is, if you have a 2012 Civic Si, as I do the mounts for that, that is going to use this mount over on the oil pan over here as opposed to this mount right here. But as you can see right now, this is how the mount sits. You're not going to be able to use the power steering rack on the EG. You can use the one off the DC, but there's really no power steering pump, so you might as well just get a manual rack. This nub won't be there, so there'll be plenty of room. The other thing is probably gonna have to put some dents here in the subframe just for a little bit of clearance. I will move the engine over about another, probably about a quarter inch that way for the final bracket design. But here we have it. This is the Type R engine mount kit. This is what it looks like. It's going to require quite a bit of modification to get it in the car. I think the next thing to do is to get a hold of the Accord motor and start working on mounts for it in the CRZ, in the 06 Civic Si, and the 2012 Civic Si, and just kind of carry on a little bit farther. While I'm waiting for one of those Accord motors to wind up in a salvage yard so I can go grab it, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the L15B7 mounts. Now the L15B7 looks very similar to this engine, but it's actually a slightly smaller version of it, so it fits a hell of a lot better. I'm hoping that we'll be able to close the hood on that particular car. Let's look at the hood clearance. So you can see the oil pan is level with the lower subframe. As you can see by looking at the bottom of the engine, we made the oil pan exactly the same height as the subframe. And we did that because there was no way we were really going to be able to tuck this motor below the hood. So I decided to give it acceptable ground clearance. So we made it exactly the same height, which is very close to what a K-Series is, actually a little bit better. But let me show you what happens when we do that. Our hood doesn't really come close to closing. We've got about 4.5 inches from where this piece right here would normally sit down here in the hood latch. So hopefully somebody at some point is going to make a hood for this thing for people who do Type R swaps. Again, as we move on to the next one, which is the L15B7 engine into this car, we should be able to close the hood. If I have to lower the engine slightly in order to do that, I will do that. But one of the big problems is there's a lot of stuff going on over here. There's a high pressure fuel pump, there's the intake manifold, all the stuff is interfering with the head, and you can't really relocate the high pressure fuel pump. Now you're going to probably gain another inch by cutting out some of the substructure underneath the hood, but you're not really going to get enough to close the hood at all. Anyway, we expect this kit to be out fairly soon. I'm going to ship this particular kit off to some people in California who are looking to do a engine swap. As a matter of fact, I'll put their Instagram page in the comments below on this YouTube video, and you can follow along with them as they build the swap. Thanks for joining us here on VTEC Academy. I appreciate that. If you like what you see here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. And if you click on the bell, you'll get a notification every time we come out with a new video. Also, head on over to the VTEC Academy website and show your support by buying one of our t-shirts. That helps us bring you more projects. Anyway, this has been VTEC Academy. You just got schooled.